Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, as-salatu was-salam ala rasulillahi wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Welcome everybody from around the world. My name is Bilal Abdul Kareem, and this is the BAK show wherein we discuss the issues which are important to you. Um, we've got a lot of stuff that we need to talk about here today. What's been going on in Suwaydaa, Syria? That's the southern part of Syria. We want to try to help you to understand how we got to where we are now. A lot of people have heard some things about what's been going on here. I'm going to try to give you, as best as I possibly can, an update in terms of how it started, where we are, and where it looks like we're going to be going. But first, before we get started, I would like to invite everybody to please take a look at our crowdfunding page, and that's at medina.com/voices of truth. And it is appearing right now on your screen. There it is. Voices of Truth. Oh, it didn't appear. Now, let's see. Okay, there it is a project in which I am heading, wherein we are going all around the country and we are interviewing people to tell us their stories about how they were affected by Bashar al-Assad and his murderous government. We're talking about people who've had family members that were disappeared and they never returned. We're talking about people who were tortured in their prisons, who never thought that they would have an opportunity to tell their story. And we're talking about people that some of them actually did some of the oppressing. And we want to get their stories as well. But we need your help, brothers and sisters. If you can, please do visit our crowdfunding page. That's medina.com/voices of truth. Medina.com/voices of truth. That's a project that I am heading, and we really need your support for it. Okay, everybody, let's get started and let's take a look and see where we are. Oh, once again, I want to let everybody know this is an opportunity for you to send in your questions. I'll try my best to answer them in an orderly fashion. Okay, let's get started here. Firstly, I am broadcasting from Dara, and that's just outside of Suwaydaa. Suwaydaa is a hot spot. Suwaydaa is on the borders of Israel. That's why you're hearing so much about it. If it was in the middle of the country, if it was in the north of the country, you probably wouldn't be hearing as much in the news as you are. But the issues are as follows. Suwaydaa is a region that borders Israel, and basically, Ahmad Sharaa, the president of the new president of the country that took over after Bashar al-Assad, sent his envoy to Suwaydaa some months ago. What took place was that the envoy was kidnapped and was then returned back to Damascus. These areas did not want to have any type of presence from the Damascus government. The Druze, I should mention, that the some of the Druze factions rejected the authority of the new president, Ahmad Sharaa. Now, um, the highest demographic of Druze people in Syria is in the Suwaydaa region. You've got several players like Belousi. You've got the main protagonist, I guess we should probably call it. His name is Hikmat al-Hajri, and he heads a military council here in southern Syria. Now, after they kicked out the envoy from Damascus some months ago, there's been no presence in these territories in that regard. Okay, but just about 2 weeks ago now, probably 11 days ago, there was a Druze businessman. He was a buyer and seller, and he was attacked on the roadway by unknown assailants. Keep this in mind. He was attacked by unknown assailants. Up until now, we have no idea who those people were that attacked him. Now, being that there had been some bad blood between the Bedouin tribes and the Druze community, it was automatically blamed on the Bedouin tribes who denied any type of involvement. Uh, Reprisal attacks came up, and then it became a tit for tat thing between Bedouin tribes and the Israeli backed Hikmat al Hajri's forces. This is very, very key because remember, Suwaydaa is on the borders of Israel. Things spiraled out of control quickly, and Ahmad Sharaa sent his forces in to quell the violence. Once those forces were on their way, the Israelis got involved and they bombed the convoy. They said that they were trying to protect the Druze community because there's a Druze community also in the Israeli territories. Most people, and I'm one of them, do not subscribe to this particular idea um, because we're talking about Syria. That's a totally separate country, and there haven't been any state attacks on the Druze community. It just hasn't happened. But Benjamin Netanyahu also has been keen to say back in March that he did not want any troops on the southern border of Syria that borders Israel. And that's very, very key because up until now, there are no Syrian troops on the border of Israel. And the Israelis come in and go out sometimes on a daily basis. They send their troops in, they attack homes, they arrest people, set up checkpoints, and then they go back across the border. So there have been numerous provocations with the Israelis trying to provoke Ahmed Sharaa into a bigger and broader conflict. Now, you might be asking yourself a question. Why would the Israelis, be backing someone like Hajri? Well, Hajri is one of the sheikhs of the Druze community, and he's one of the strong men in this territory. Now, the reason why the Israelis are backing them is because they don't want Ahmed Shara's troops on their border. They want their own guy that they back, that they fund, and of course they control to be in charge on the Suwaydaa border. Now, if you look at this is southern Syria. On this side, you have Quneitra. Quneitra is controlled by occupation Israeli forces. So much of Quneitra is already under IDF control. On this side, you have Suwaydaa. If they can secure it with the help of Hikmat al Hajri, then they would have the east and the west. But there's a little part that's right in the middle. It's called Dara. That's where I currently am. And if they were to, now remember, there are no troops from Damascus in that southern border in Dara. It would basically take some Israeli troops to come walking in or on motorbikes. They don't even need to come in tanks and cars because there are no Syrian government troops there. And to seal off that entire area from Quneitra to their strongman, Hajri, in Suwaydaa, and the entire southern part of Syria is totally gone. That's why they're backing Hejri to this extent. Now, there have been several quote unquote agreements that have taken place over the past 5 or 6 days, and each and every time it's been the exact same thing. Hejri has said that I am not with the agreement, and uh, and the violence basically continues, which is where we are today. The violence continued today, this afternoon, around Asr time, local time, wherein a convoy of state security forces went into the city of Suwaydaa, which was part of an agreement which was made so that they would take over certain areas inside of the city. But lo and behold, it was bombed by Israeli forces. It's by an Israeli aerial attack. There were Israeli drones in the area several hours before the attack took place. And that left the tribal members who have flooded into the area to protect the Sunni population here in Suwaydaa, because once the forces of Ahmad Sharaa were attacked when they came into the Suwaydaa area, they pulled out. Why they did that up until now, we don't really know. There was supposed to be some type of agreement. We never heard any details, but I digress. The point of the matter is that they did pull out. That exposed the Bedouin tribes to reprisal attacks. Some of the Bedouins were thrown from buildings. Some of them were shot and killed in the street. Some of them were beheaded. Some of them were killed by way of bombs or rockets, which were fired, of course, all supplied by Israel. And that was the situation that took place. So they called in, meaning the Bedouins, the tribal forces from around the country. Thousands upon thousands of tribal fighters flooded into Suwaydaa to protect the Sunni population. And that is exactly what they did. But now, where we are today is that the tribal forces are not being allowed to go into Suwaydaa city to face off against the forces of the Israeli-backed Hajri, because they're being stopped by state security forces. All right. Now, state security forces have been saying that these are the orders from Damascus because there are ongoing negotiations. However, as is crystal clear, the negotiations have obviously failed, and state security young brothers continue to be killed as they were today when four were murdered by an Israeli attack. That is where we are today. We're going to be taking your questions and your comments and your concerns. Let's get started here because we've got a lot of ground to cover and all. We've got King Kong here who says, Salamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi, my brothers. All right. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay, we've got another message here. Let's take a look. He says, Assalamu alaikum. Is it true that some Bedouins were counter kidnapping and also killing Druze civilians? Okay, in all honesty, they had both sides were doing tit for tat attacks. Um, Unfortunately, there's been bad blood between the Druze community and the Bedouin community for some time. Some of the tribal members did things that they shouldn't be doing, just as the Druze factions were doing things that they shouldn't have been doing. So yes, there were reprisal attacks on both sides. So yes, that did take place. Yes, it did. Okay. Next, we've got what happened in the National Hospital in Suwaydaa and who were the deceased. It was a false story. The doctors were not killed. It was a false story. It wasn't. It wasn't true. Okay, we've got Amina Jamila. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I always love to hear from her. Jazakillah khair. All right, let's move on. Okay. All right. We've got Ahmed here who says, Salam akhi Bilal. Why is Syria asking Israel for permission to be entering the area even though it's Syrian territory? That's a doggone question. That's a good question. Let me do my best to answer it. Syria is supposed to have its own sovereign territory. That's Syrian territory. It's state territory. But it doesn't always work like that, as we could see in Gaza, as we can see in the West Bank, that sovereign territory doesn't always mean sovereign when there's a power that thinks that they can take what you have and you can't do anything about it. That's what's happening in the Palestinian territories. And it's the same thing here. The Israelis are occupying the Golan Heights. They have taken additional territory in the Quneitra region after the country was liberated from the hands of Bashar al-Assad back in December of last year. Just several days after that, Israeli forces came in to Syrian territory and took over Mount Hermon, which is known as Jebel al-Sheikh in the uh, in the Arabic language. Now that's just 25 kilometers away from Damascus. Of course, that is a big violation, but the Israelis feel like, well, what are you going to do about it? And therefore, they've taken that territory. And Benjamin Netanyahu has said that we are going to remain there indefinitely. He also said that he didn't want any troops on that southern border. Now, your question is very, very clear. With what right or authority does he have to tell the Syrians what to do on their side of the border? The reality of the situation is that we live in a jungle. Don't let all of this talk about international norms and international rights and human rights and state sovereignty. It means nothing. It's a total myth. Unless a Muslim country decides to encroach on another country, and in which case, all of a sudden, it's a really, really big deal that can't be ignored. But if, as long as Muslim countries are being invaded by the Israelis, it's all good because they have a right to defend themselves. So to finish off your question, if you've got enough muscle, you see something that you like, take it. That's the way that things have been working here, and Allah knows best. All right, let's see. Okay, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Habibi, may Allah bless you and your family and grant you another wife. Ameen. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I don't know if I can do that. I got four already. So it says here, what side should the Ummah unite under? Okay, I would say, and Allah knows best, because the Hajri outfit or group, they are not, they are allied with the Israelis. Even as we speak right now, there are Israeli drones that are flying over our heads. So uh, the Israelis are the enemies of the Muslims. That's the reality of the situation. They are enemies of the Muslims. They have allied with them, and therefore they are enemies of the Muslims. Now, Ahmad Sharaa, formerly known as Abu Muhammad Jolani, as most people know, he is not my favorite choice for president. I You could say I don't have a great fondness for him, but I'm not going to take away from him in the respect that I do believe that in this conflict, he's definitely in the right. Um, we have our differences, most of them Islamic, but I'm not going to take anything away from him. I think that the Israelis and the Israeli backed forces in the southern part of this country are totally wrong, and that he has the right to exercise his sovereignty over the country that he runs. That's the reality of the situation. That's what international norms call for. But then again, when you're Muslim and you ain't got enough muscle, you got to take it on the chin. That's exactly the way things go here. Now, let's see. All right, we've got Muayin, and he's from Falls Church, Virginia. All right. So he's here. Jazakallah khair. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Glad you're watching from Falls Church. And next up, we've got Salaam alaikum. I am your brother from Chechnya. Allahu Akbar. May Allah protect you and your family from danger. Ameen. Because it's not fun listening to drones over your heads all day. That's but that's just how it is here. Okay, next we've got Birdnest Ratfest, who says Israel is itching to use the nukes they uh, uh, they popped Kennedy for. Brother, maybe 2 years ago, I would have told you, no, I don't think so, because that would make them a pariah state, and there would be a lot of backlash for that, and they wouldn't do it. That's probably what I would have said 2 years ago. 2 years later, after the genocide is currently taking place, and a complete famine and starvation is happening in real time on TV on a nightly basis, and they continue to do what they're doing, I'm going to tell you that anything goes. I really couldn't tell you that that they wouldn't use it. That I just don't know, because the Americans, who are their staunch allies, are going to find some cockamamie way to explain it away. That they had to nuke the entire Middle East because they had to defend themselves, or because somebody's cat died, or something along those lines. They've done it before, and I believe that they will continue to defend them when they're wrong again until the American people stand up. Next, what Mr. Jolani going to answer for death of 100 martyrs in government building attacked by Israel? He has to answer to Allah and the martyrs not taking any action against Israel. I can I can't tell you that I know what's going through his head, but I can imagine that he sees that he has a very difficult and powerful force in Israel, but it's not limited to Israel. You got to keep one thing in mind. The sanctions that crippled this country are still in play. And he gave importance to that by going to Washington, I should say, by going to Riyadh and meeting with Donald Trump. And the sanctions were, well, they weren't lifted, but they were given 180-day waivers. That means every 180 days, Ahmed Sharaa and his government have to go back to the Americans and ask that the waivers be renewed, so that the sanctions will stay lifted, because they're not removed. There's a difference between removing sanctions and that the sanctions have, you get a waiver to do the things that you would do if you didn't have sanctions, but it only lasts for 180 days. That is a means of control. On the real to real, let me just give it to you straight. That's a means of control. That's not, as Donald Trump said, though he loves Prince Mohammed Salman too much, he's going to let the Syrians off the hook. It's totally bogus. Don't listen to Donald Trump. Why? He's the one who's bankrolling and funding and arming a genocide and a famine that's taking place right here in the Middle East, that's advertised to all of us. Anybody that wants to see it can see it. How is it that he can't see it? So that's what the reality of the situation is. As for Ahmed Sharaa not attacking back the Israelis, now some people are going to say, well, what's he going to attack them with? Well, the reality of the situation is that the Israelis are not going to stop. They're not going to stop. As I made mention, this is southern Syria. They've already taken this territory in Quneitra, most of it. They're making a play for the other side of it, which is Suwaydaa. The only thing that really is left, if they can secure the Suwaydaa area, which they're making a play for, it's just to sow it right across in the Dara area, and all of southern Syria is gone. And you've got a hostile Israeli troops 25 kilometers away from your capital. That's bad news. So even though Ahmed Sharaa might feel that he's outgunned and outmanned, I hope he's not feeling that he can call the Americans and they're going to call off Netanyahu, because the Palestinians, they've kind of been there, done that, and they haven't seen any results as of yet. And I don't think he's going to see any results either. But when you rely on Allah and you realize you have no choice, those Israelis are not going to stop. Once they take all of a sudden Syria, they won't be happy. They're going to go for Damascus. Once they take Damascus, they go for Homs. And then it just continues. Okay. Muhammad Niaz. Oh, got a great message here. He says, Assalamu alaikum, akhi. I love you for Allah. أحبك الذي أحببتني فيه. And I love you for the sake of the one whom you love me for. Ameen. Okay, let's see. What a ridiculous thing to say. Oh, well, that was nice to say. Okay. Thank you for that. Oh, we have here ندوش. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. كيف حالك؟ حالي جيد جدا ولله الحمد. جزاك الله خير للسؤال. All right, we love when she sends us a message also. Okay, next up, we've got here, brother, are the Syrian Sunnis united? Are they united in helping the Bedouin brothers and sisters? Absolutely. Yes, they are. There is nobody who's confused, doesn't understand. Should we be helping out Hajri or something along those lines? Syria is 90% Sunni, and they all stand behind the brothers and sisters in Suwaydaa. That's real, and it's very, very nice to see that kind of unity. Now, okay, Infinite Beast says, are the Bedouins still mobilizing and taking over Suwaydaa? The Bedouins at this time are on the outskirts of Suwaydaa city, being held back by state security um, from going into Suwaydaa. To be honest with you, after Maghrib today, there was a huge uh, uh, crowd in at least one of the masajid and fighters in the street. I filed that report in I filed that report on my Twitter page, Bilal Kareem on Twitter, where the people are just angry because one, they're angry because the state security guys were bombed by the Israelis. They're angry because the state security are not letting them in to go in and fight inside the city of Suwaydaa, and they're not getting satisfactory answers. And many of them are still here, and they're vowing not to leave until they feel that their Bedouin brethren have been properly protected. So they're here, and they didn't look like they were going anywhere. At Maghrib time, they were very, very angry. So I don't know if the status quo of keeping the tribal fighters back is sustainable for another 24 hours. Based upon what I saw this evening, I don't think that's going to last. No. I think that's going to be done away with. Assalamu alaikum from Ireland. MashaAllah, MashaAllah. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. It's good to have you. All righty. We've got Pamela Chubb who says, let's take a look and see what her question is. I hope this stops Israel. Um, I hope this stops Israel. Use any excuse. They have no boundaries or morals. Jolani knows they can't afford another war. Inshallah, this will stop. All right. Look, first of all, I'm really sorry that I'm reading this stuff pretty slow. I don't have my glasses on. And, this is, we're not in the studio. I'm basically just doing the best that I can with the internet connection that I've got. And I hope that it's sufficient. So please forgive me if we've fallen short. In addition to that, as for your question, look, it says here that they can't afford another war. But can he afford not to have one? I think that's a question we have to have a discussion about. I mean, I don't think that the conversation needs to be limited only to can you afford to have a war? Well, can you afford not to have one when one of the belligerents is saying, I'm going to take everything that you have unless you resist? That's what's happening right now. The Israelis are basically saying we're going to take what you have. They remember after the fall of Bashar al-Assad, within 24 hours, bombings were taking place, bombing military installations here in Syria by the Israeli Air Force. Now, you got to keep one thing in mind. That was 24 hours after Bashar al Assad had fallen. No one had attacked Israel. No one said they were going to attack Israel. Nobody was making any moves to attack Israel because the country had just fallen. And unless I missed my call, when I was going down to Damascus from northern Syria, and I saw this convoy of cars going alongside me, going beep, 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 I'd probably say that Ahmed Sharaa was in the car sitting right next to me. You see? So while all of that was taking place, the Israelis were busy bombing. So when you have a hostile entity like that on your borders who are telling you can't have troops on your side of the border, but at the same time, they're saying they have the right to come into your territory, arrest people, set up checkpoints, steal cattle, do whatever it is that we want, and go back across the border. And then they look at you and say, oh, what you going to do about it? Okay, it's wild, wild west. That's exactly what it is. We have to call it what it is. Let's not call it, international law and such like that. No, this is the rule of if a man wanted something, he just took it. And that's basically what's taking place now. So I would like to say, do we need to have a conversation also about can he afford not to have a war? How far does he think Netanyahu is going to be willing to go? And how much of Syria is he willing to cede before he throws whatever he has at the Israelis? Okay. Okay, we've got Asman Hamsi who says, Salaam alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Uh, Baby, I'm Khadija. Uh-oh. That's one of my wives. I think I'm in trouble. Jazakillah khair, lidrisala. Jazakillah khair. Allah yahfaduki. Allah yahfaduki. All right, next message up. We've got here. We all know that the current international laws are not worth the paper that they are written on. Brother, can you spare a dime? Well, that's what we say sometimes when we say somebody is telling the truth. You are telling the exact truth. There is no international law. International law only applies to ex-dictators who no longer has anything to contribute to powerful nations and to Muslim countries. Yeah, that's right. I said it. Okay. Okay, next up is the question, brother, what part of Suwaydaa are you in? I am not in Suwaydaa right now. I am in the province just next to Suwaydaa in Dara. But we go into Suwaydaa, into the city, and that's where we go when we are able to do so. Um, Next, are any Bedouin civilians still being held hostage or facing direct threats from Druze forces? Yes, they are. All of the prisoners have not been released. Just today, we got some information about the 400 about 400 prisoners that are still trapped in one location. I'm going to see if there's somebody here who can answer that question. Um, yeah, I'm going to see if I can maybe get an answer. Have they been rescued or not? But no, there are still prisoners which are being held. But look, let me talk to you very briefly about prisoners being held. What they did is they literally just took men, women, and children. They took families. Almost everybody saw images of a young girl. She must have been about 8 years old, and her eyes were swollen, and she was in very bad condition. Her hip was broken, and they just arrested men, women, and children. I don't see how you can consider those prisoners of war, because they're not. Those are just civilians. Um, Next, how long can Syria be patient with Israel the way they are attacking and taking land and occupying? I don't know. I really couldn't answer that question. I don't think that they should have been patient this long, because the way things work with mafia like forces is that they take and take and take and take until you can actually show them something. And if you can't show them anything, they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop. Okay, we've got, will the SDF exploit this situation in your opinion? Yes, I do believe that they would, because they are in, um, uh, they're not, I wouldn't say in opposition to Damascus, but they're not pro Damascus. And in spite of the fact that there have been agreements between Ahmed Sharaa, the president of the country, and Madloum Abdi, who is the leader of the Kurdish militia forces, there hasn't been much movement on the integration and the absorbing of those territories into the state in Damascus. Now, you got to keep one thing in mind: the Kurdish militia forces control around almost a third of the country. I think it's a tall order to assume that they're going to honor that agreement, when Madloum Abdi is kind of notorious for not sticking to agreements, and he's not alone in that. Okay, we've got here Infinite Beast. Some Bedouins killed innocent Druze. Yes, but the Druze killed 73 Sunni civilians and hid them in the hospital. Okay, that story turned out not to be the case, but the essence of what you're saying is very, very true. Yes, did some Bedouins go overboard? They absolutely did, and nobody's not gonna tell you that they didn't. But the reprisals of throwing people off of the buildings, kidnapping women and children, and rounding them up, and keeping them in places 1,000 people at a time. And that's exactly what happened. And I sat with people today, at the refugee center, who, or at least one of them, who she was narrating her story. And we did record her story, and you will be seeing her story tomorrow on OGN. Let's take one more here. And it says, Israel doesn't have the numbers and ground forces to take over Syria, brother. Okay, here's the thing: they don't have to take over Syria. Keep in mind one thing. They already have forces that have taken most of Quneitra. Okay, then when you look at the Suwaydaa areas, they don't have to send a single troop in, as long as they financially back this Hikmat al-Hajri. His forces will take over the Suwaydaa area, if Allah allows that. So they don't have to send troops in for that. And theoretically, what they could do is let is that increase the funding for Al Hajri and let him take over Dara also, because Dara is wide open. So they don't need to come in with their own troop force in order to be able to take over certain territories. And that is all right. This is the last one that we'll take here, and it is as follows. The response of Ahmed Sharaa has been beyond disappointing. Why did he stop the tribes from getting the job done? The whole situation is breaking my heart, man. No, it's not just you. It's not just you. See, one of the problems that we have here is that there isn't a culture here in Syria wherein the Syrian people are accustomed to questioning their leaders. And that's not a bad thing. That's not to sit there and say that Ahmed Sharaa is no good. or he's a bum as a president. That's not that. But what it is that, look, um, um, you know, this 26 million people, or however many are still here in Syria, they have a stake in whether the policies of the president are good and correct or are not. Now, you got to understand something. Ahmad Sharaa was not elected. He appointed himself as the leader. So I would say that gives even more of a reason to have a dialogue with the Syrian people and to discuss things. Now, he's going to end up making the final decision, and that's his decision to make. But I do think that there needs to be some conversations with more than just Ahmed Shaybani and whoever else his backers are internationally, because they're not his friends. And I hope that he understands that, because they don't want them to see him succeed and grow strong. That's the reality of the situation. Okay, brothers and sisters. Look, before we go, gonna ask you, please check out our crowdfunding page. That's at medina.com/voices of truth. If you could donate to us $10, $100, $1,000, that would be great, because we are documenting the stories of those people who lived under the oppressive rule of Bashar al-Assad, and we really, really need your help. I'm trying to see here, because I'm just using my mobile phone. That's why I can't see it, because it's too small. And I should have my glasses on, and my wives will definitely scold me for that. And I can't seem to find it. All right. Well, I guess my days of being able to see things without my glasses are basically over. Ah, yes. Here it is. يعني شو صار إلى أسنانك بالضبط؟
وقت اللي يعذبوني، وقت اللي يسألوني سؤال وما بدي أجاوب عليه يقلعوا لي كل سن ببنسة.
بالبنسل. نعم. وكم أسنان أم شيخ؟
شلعوا لي كل القداميات من تحت من عدد ضرسين، وشلعوا لي 3 من فوق. أثناء تسببوا لي مرض، دخلوني مشفى العسكري بحماه، ضليت فيه 9 أيام.
وما كان المرض؟
مرض النزف من لست أسناني.
نعم. وعند الكهرباء كان يكهربك، كيف هذا كان؟
قعدوني على كرسي يسألوني أسئلة بدهم ياني أجاوب عليها، وأنا ماني قادرة أجاوب عليها ولأنها ما أنا موجودة عندي. يحطوا لي جرية بالمي وضربوا الكهرباء. That's just one of the stories that we are covering, and we're translating them into English, giving a voice to people who did not have an opportunity to speak out and probably never thought that they would. So please help us out, brothers and sisters. That's our crowdfunding page. It's medina.com/voices of truth. Medina.com/voices of truth. Take a look at it. Do anything that you possibly could. We would be so appreciative of it. And we're going to have to leave it there. I am your host, Bilal Abdul Kareem, Jazakumullah khair, coming at you from southern Syria. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.